Welcome to the Catalyst Life Coaching Podcast with John Kim and Noelle Cordeaux.
The next Catalyst Life Coaching Intensive begins November 12th.
If you're inspired to begin your own coaching practice or just want to learn a little bit more about what it's all about, visit shift.us, shft.us, for more information. Your adventure awaits.
Hey guys, what's up? I have a special guest today. She is not only a friend, but she's a powerful life coach. She's a catalyst. She's one of our instructors. Deanna Moffitt. Did I say your name right?
Listen, how long have you known me and you got to ask that question now?
I know your first name's easy. I'm really bad at last names. So it's Moffitt?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's easy.
How else could it be?
I don't know, it could be like an emphasis, like Moffitt, or I don't know. I always, there's always fear when I say last names. And then English is my second language. Okay, so Deanna, we're going to talk. So here's what's interesting. I was randomly thinking about who I want on the next episode. I thought about Deanna. We actually tried to connect before, but she has a very busy schedule. And I randomly texted her. Cut to talk about your side. What happened?
Yeah, so it was just this morning. Actually, you were texting me, and I was working on this worksheet from a friend of mine who has a company called Map and Fire. They do lean strategy for small businesses, and I was looking at some of the big goals I want to achieve in my life. One of them was to write a book. I'm not a great writer. John Kim,
That's not true.
You're a great writer. Oh, shut up.
Well, no, you saying you're not a great writer is not true.
Well, anyway, but you're saying you are a great writer?
Yeah, I'm
okay.
saying I am.
Anyway, what I know for sure is you have a muscle that I rarely flex, and that is just sitting down and writing. And my strength is actually talking. We'll see if that actually holds true through this podcast. But what I found was I just had literally wrote down one of the objective goals to meet that bigger goal was I need to be on 5 podcasts, and I put a time frame in there.
Wow, 4 now.
I know, 4 now. And literally, I was telling John, like 90 seconds later, I received your text that said, hey, you want to be on this podcast? And I was like, okay.
So that brings us to the word synchronicity.
Mm-hmm. That's a magical word, isn't it?
It can be. I mean, it can be if you notice and you believe. So a lot of people would see that situation and they wouldn't notice it. They wouldn't think anything of it. They would be very dismissive of it, right? Because most people, we pull from our left brain. What does synchronicity mean for you, and how's it playing out in your life?
I think it means this idea of being open. First of all, I think you have to be really clear on what you want.
How clear? Like details or general? What do you mean by clear?
The more clarity, the easier it is to find what you want.
Sure, okay.
Right? Okay. So I think the more you can dive down into that. And then, first of all, being clear and then being open. Like that's the hard part is I think there are things happening around us all the time. And just like you said, we can get wrapped up in time or busyness or these things or tasks we think we need to do that we're not up and looking at the horizon to see the options.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the next part of it is first being clear and then being open. And man, I can't tell you how many times things just show up for me.
Yeah, and I gotta say, guys, I used to be the guy that if I heard this, I would file it under the category of woo-woo, and I wouldn't show it, but I would be rolling my eyes on the inside, and I would be nodding my head. But I believe in it now. Like, I believe in that. I believe in secret. So I about a month ago, I lit a candle. Someone bought me, an energy coach bought me a success candle. And she said, light this candle, but don't just light it. Like, actually have intentions, put that energy into it. On a Post-it, write down, the things that you want. And she said, be very specific, the details. Fold them up, put it underneath the candle, and just let it burn. Don't blow the fire out. And 2 out of the maybe 8 things have already come true, and they're things that don't happen or in everyday life, and they're also things where the odds were against them happening. One of them was my recent book deal. My agent went out to 30 publishers, 29 passed.
Yeah.
And it was just that last one. And the last one was the biggest, the best one, the one that we were really hoping for. But also, it wasn't even that. The detail of the dollar amount was exact.
Yeah.
Yeah, so stuff like that. And it's I think it's a choice to believe in something bigger. Here's the thing. Okay, so what if you don't? What if you take something like that and you say, oh, it's logic or it's coincidence or whatever? I think that type of thinking makes the world very narrow.
Yeah, I'm saying I feel like that allows you to live a really small life.
Yes. Like what does it hurt if you choose to believe in things you can't see, or whether we're talking about synchronicity, serendipity, magic, whatever? Like what is it gonna hurt if you choose to believe that? Like what's the negative in that?
Well, I think what happens for a lot of people is either they weren't brought up in it, or they feel scarce in the sense that takes them out of control of the situation a bit, right?
Right. Well, because you have to trust something else.
You got to trust the energy. You got to trust the fact that you know, we're all putting out energy, and science has already proven that energy attracts energy, right? So a like energy attracts a like energy.
Sure.
So if you're walking around at a low frequency and shit's happening to you, going down, like obviously, right? I mean, I don't know how you can't think that if you put out higher level frequency, higher level energy, higher level amount of positivity, and that was proven with Barbara Fredrickson and her book Positivity. It's like there is such thing as positivity resonance, that when you put that out, positive energy, higher frequency comes back to you.
Well, here's a misconception, I think, and this kind of overlaps into the whole law of attraction and stuff. I think that people will do it for a day, or they'll do it for an hour, and they're like, oh, see, nothing happened. Like, I put the positive out there, it's 8 o'clock, I did not win the lottery, or she did not call me back, or we didn't close the deal, it's bullshit. Like, I think that there's a consistency there. It's like working out. Like, you can't change your body after doing 100 jumping jacks. Like, you have to thread it into your life.
Yeah. Can I tell you a story about that?
Yeah, of course.
So I had been journaling for, I don't know, somewhere between, I lost track, but 3 and 5 years. I'd been journaling. I want to go to Australia, but I don't want to pay for it. I want to go to Australia, but I don't want to pay for it. This year, I was doing some work for a big company, and I had done some work domestic here in the States with them, and one job up in Canada. So I'm a coach and a trainer for big companies.
Yes.
And it turns out that they wanted to go international with this program. And where do you think the first place is that they wanted to go?
Japan?
No.
Korea?
They wanted to go to Australia. And they wanted me to go. And
you went,
and I went. And not only did I not have to pay for it, but they paid me to go. Like, I made money on that situation.
Wow.
And I think, I could have gotten disappointed and said, scratch that after 6 months or a year. But our timeline, like...
Wait, how long have you been wanting to...
Oh, it's been 3 to 5 years.
Right. So there's a great example. So the seed of that desire, seeing it, wanting it, putting it out there, putting the energy out there, and like 3+ years later.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's the thing, is we have to let go of our own human timelines. Like, our
huge.
Subconscious...
That's huge.
Will put all the puzzle pieces together, but it's not going to do it necessarily...
In your time.
In my time. And plus, I don't know that would be ready in my time. Like, I feel like sometimes we want things before we're necessarily...
Ready to handle them.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so guys, if you are playing with, exploring, or being very curious about energy and being positive and higher frequencies, and all the stuff that Deanna's that she's talking about, I also write about, and also playing with and exploring myself. Be consistent and be patient. And I think that when you start to get impatient and you start to, I think when you start to like, oh, it's not happening, you've already lost your belief in it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Going back to the word curiosity.
Oh, I like that.
Deanna is a curiosity coach, which makes me extremely curious, because this is the first time I've heard of this. I love the idea of it. So explain that. What is a curiosity coach? And also give us your tagline, because that's really great too.
Yeah, so I'm a curiosity coach, and the tagline is, when you ask a better question, you have a better life. And I think part of it is,
It's true.
Right?
It's true. Well, as a life coach, Deanna teaches how to ask questions in her class. It's the rudder of where you're going to go, and most of us ask very simple yes or no, simple questions, and they ask the same questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you started me on this whole trajectory. Like you and I met, was it now 2-3 years ago?
Yes, we met on Craigslist.
Yep. I was trying to sell a bidet and he wanted one. No, we met at CrossFit Box and you were doing these mindset classes and I was going to them.
Right.
And I got intrigued. I didn't know who the hell you were, what you were about, and you mentioned this angry therapist thing, and then you mentioned you taught these catalyst courses, and I'm always one that kind of goes toward the thing that my heart says yes to. And so I thought, well, what the hell? I'm going to take this life coaching course. And I'm a coach for an organization called the Mind Gym, which does this corporate coaching. So I go into big companies, but I wanted to see what would happen on a more personal level. So I took this coaching course that you offer, and you allowed me to provide you some feedback afterwards. And one of the things I said was, the course was great, but I think there was something missing for me. And it's like, I don't know how to have these conversations. Like, how do I ask questions? And you were so great. You said, well, you want to teach that? I was like,
I don't remember this. Okay, great.
And I was like, oh, okay.
So what was good was that forced you to start exploring. And
So you sent, this whole thing set me down a trajectory of the power of our questions. This year, I got certified in something called appreciative inquiry, which is something that was developed by a gentleman by the name of David Cooperrider out of Case Western. And it works on a personal level, but it also works on a whole systems level. So they've done this work with the UN and the Navy and cities like Cleveland and Detroit. But the idea is when you are looking for the best of what was, what is, and what could be, that puts us into a different trajectory than just solving this problem, right? Solving a problem doesn't get us to greatness.
Right. Well, that gets us to
neutral.
Baseline.
Yeah. So how do we get to excellence, or how do we get to flourishing? We ask a different question. And I think that's...
So it positions us mentally.
Right. And I think it's earlier, like what you were talking about, there's a way of thinking about our questions are the lens of which we look at our life or experience our life. So one to say, if I'm planning to go to an event, I could ask myself a question like, oh my God, why am I going to this thing? This is going to be terrible, right? And I have asked myself that question. And more often than not, it's not a great experience, or I set myself up to just not have a great experience. But what if I were to ask a question like, I wonder who I'm going to meet there, or I wonder who I could meet that I could help, right? Then all of a sudden it just changes things.
Right, it really does. It creates optimism, it creates hope. And I think so when you believe in something greater, there's also an element of not asking the question how, because the how will take care of itself. It's more about like why and other questions.
Well, I'm going to actually, because I think you can ask a how question. How might I use my strengths to my best advantage? And then I think what we can do, I think oftentimes people get afraid to ask these kind of questions because they don't have an answer.
Right.
But the reality is, and I know you know this, that you do, it's just not at your conscious level yet.
Yeah.
And so one day when you ask these big questions of yourself, and you're willing to ask the question, there's going to be a time when you're in the shower, or you're driving, or you're just walking around, that all of a sudden your subconscious puts all of the pieces together, and you're like, there it is. There's my answer. And
I call that the flux
capacitor
moment, when he fell off the thing and hit and invented the time machine.
Yeah.
Back to the Future. Okay.
No, I feel like that's true, and I think there has to be a willingness, and then just a trust that you do know your answer, even if it is so buried in your subconscious that it can't come up just yet.
So using curiosity as a shovel.
Yeah.
Right? The power of curiosity.
And I honestly, this came up for me so big around the elections last year. I felt like we were asking terrible questions of all our candidates.
Right.
We weren't asking, and I really felt in that moment, if we're not asking bigger questions about our external world, there's no way in hell we're asking those questions about ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? And I almost think that that's why there is such a rebirth or this birth of life coaching, because people don't know how to ask questions of themselves.
And I think, and I was told, or I read somewhere, that everything we think about today, like 99% of things that we think about today, we thought about yesterday. So we're basically having the same
Yeah.
thoughts, right? We're basically
Yeah.
living in this continuous mental loop, and then those thoughts are charged with the same type of emotion. So if we're asking the same questions we asked yesterday, which we don't have the answers to, and they lead us down a path of
Right.
discouragement, negativity, then we're just living in cul-de-sacs. We're not there. There's no. We get stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think
And even as you're saying that, I was thinking, those 99% questions are often like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this right? It's like,
well, it's like loaded and blaming and internalizing.
yeah, and I was like, I would be very quick to say, why don't you ask what's right with you?
Right.
What are you doing wrong?
Right.
So let's start that forward momentum in the future, or stepping you into a more positive direction.
Shouldn't this be a class taught in high school?
Oh my
You know what I'm
gosh!
talking about? Like,
Yes,
can you imagine, like,
absolutely. I would think
man.
if we could just tie this with meditation, and if we could tie this with just awareness, personal awareness.
Yeah.
Even the question of, I'm having an emotion. What is coming up for me right now? Like being curious about our own internal mechanisms could be so powerful. We're so removed from that.
I used to be the guy. So I tell people I've lived two lives. So pre all of this, I was very angry and negative and logical. 20s and 30s. It was always the question that I always asked myself was, why isn't it happening to me? Like, and my friends around me were becoming wealthy and successful very fast, and it was always like, why did I? It was basically playing victim, which is the most powerless stage. And today I don't even, that doesn't even come across my mind. I don't ask myself those questions anymore. I feel like I've and it took a long time, but I feel like I've rewired myself where my knee jerk isn't why are things so shitty, or why are things not happening, but like, what's possible? If I can do this, or if I'm here now, what else can I do? And if I recently, there was this thing that I didn't get. It was my first quote unquote being paid to do something as an influencer. It involved travel, and I was up for it, but I didn't get it. And the old John Kim would have been, I knew it, like I knew it was a trick, whatever. But for me, it was like, oh, this actually exists, and they're hovering, and you could make money, and someone could pay you to do this kind of work. Like, so, like that revelation. Then you start asking, oh, well, if that's out there, then what else is possible?
Yeah.
Well,
let's break down the kind of responses you get from those two type of questions. So why isn't it happening to me, right? What do you get? You get all the reasons why that's not happening.
Yeah. Well, you're pointing the gun to yourself.
And
so
what are you going to
get?
And what are you going to build with
Well,
those
because
kind
I'm
of
not
responses?
tall enough, smart enough, pretty
Oh my
enough.
God. How
I
helpful
don't
is
have
that?
enough, followers.
You can come up with a million different reasons for
Right.
that, but you can't build anything from those responses.
No.
As opposed to, what can I learn from this experience? And then you start listing off like, oh, okay, well, I got that and that. And now I get to use that in a future experience.
And I just want to bring this to relationships real quick. When you go through a breakup, it's always people are like, why did they dump me? Why didn't this work out? I'm never going to find love. I'm not this or that. Instead, if you ask, what did I learn from that experience? And I always tell people after the breakup, it's the richest soil for growth, and then you learn so much more. So when you find someone who deserves you, you are bringing so much more to the table.
Right?
Yeah.
I've often said that about all of my relationships. Like, I'm just so grateful for them. They have taught me so many lessons. And I actually share that. In my last breakup, I just said, we're not right for each other.
Yeah.
But I am so grateful for our time together. And I just listed what I thought I learned from that experience. Like, how can you do anything but respect that that whole situation?
And it also gets me. Maybe we could end on this. If you want to be a positive person in someone's life, if you want to help change people, practice this. People will notice it. Because if you tell them what to do, when you get on a soapbox or behind a podium, it doesn't stick. People are defensive, like whatever, roll there. But if you're like practicing it and they notice it, then they're like, oh wow, that person's never negative, or that person asks really interesting questions.
Yeah.
Wow, like that's something I want to do for me.
So I met this guy online, and we ended up chatting for the first time yesterday. And really, within 10 seconds, he goes, "Oh my God!" He goes, "You're so different." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're so
You're not negative.
Yeah, he goes, "You're so positive." And I'm
Right.
like, "Well," he goes, I don't know how I'm different because I don't know who you've been talking to. He goes,
Right.
just trust me. He
Right,
goes,
right.
yeah. So you guys, I feel like that's such a great and somewhat easy thing to think about. It's like, what kind of energy do I want to bring in
Yeah.
to any one of these situations?
100%. But here's the thing. That being said, it's not. It starts with a decision, but it's such a practice, and I struggle with it too. I mean, there are days that I feel pessimistic and I'm throwing peas at the wall and I'm complaining. But it takes practice. I think it takes practice to be positive.
For sure.
It doesn't come naturally.
Well, we have psychologists have found a negativity bias. So you're absolutely right. So a negativity bias meaning that when
Our culture, though.
our culture, but we are wired for that. That for the self-protectionism way,
Right.
if something could go wrong, we're going to make the story about making that as wrong as possible
To protect ourselves, right,
That's
right.
wired into us.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. To buck that, to rewire the brain,
Yes.
does take effort.
What would you give, and let's end on this, 3 tips on how to start that journey of being the kind of person where you talk to someone on the phone and they're like, holy shit, you're weird.
I think, first of all, is a willingness.
A willingness,
A
yeah.
willingness. That's such a big, huge word.
You know what? A lot of people, especially in self-betterment, they go to seminars, they walk on fire, they read books, but just because you do that doesn't mean that you're willing to change. I think all that stuff is information, and information isn't enough. It's the actual practice of it.
Yeah.
So willingness.
Yeah, I think there has to be an intention. Like when even on my walk up here, so you and I live in the same neighborhood, so I was walking up here and I was consciously saying, what is the energy I want to bring into this situation? And for me, it's always leading with love. Like I want to show, John love. I want to show his listeners love. So I show up with that leading. I hope that
I love that.
comes in before I even step in the door.
So you had that conversation with yourself on the way up before you even.
Yeah.
So it's prep.
For sure. Because here's the deal. We all go through life, and you said this earlier, we all go through life so unconsciously. We're patternistic,
Right.
Research will tell us that about 98% of our
Subconscious.
thoughts, behaviors, everything we do is at a subconscious
Broken
level.
records.
Yeah. So the moment I can bring it to my consciousness and say, how do I want to show up? Then that's my step to actually show up that way. And I just think, for me also is just the recognition that what I put out always comes back. It always comes back. And
Yeah.
if
It may not come back that minute or that day.
yeah, for sure, absolutely, and it may not even come back from that source that I gave it to,
Or in
right?
the form that you were expecting.
And which is sometimes better. But I also think that it does come back. That what you put out, the simple way of that karmic effect, but research has proven it as well, is that energy does bring back a positive resonance to you.
I love that.
Yeah.
What a great way to end.
Yeah.
Deanna, thank you.
Thanks, John Kim.
And where can we find you?
Well, right now I'm sitting at your dining room table.
Okay, no, can you give them your home address, please?
Yeah.
Los Feliz.
Hey, strangely enough, I have no web presence, John. That's what I'm working on
Yeah,
right
but
now.
you have social media stuff.
Sure, yeah. You can find me at Deanna Moffitt. I'm at Deanna Moffitt on Twitter. I'm at Deanna Moffitt, and that's MOFFITT. A lot of double letters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Be well. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting, John.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks for listening to the Catalyst Life Coaching Podcast presented by SHFT. If you'd like to learn more about what you've heard on today's show, head to shift.us. That's SHFT.us for more information. Feel free to rate us, review us, and tell a friend.